What started out as a simple friendship turned into something much more intense. At the center of the story is my best friend, who sent me an invitation that fundamentally altered the dynamics of our relationship. I'll tell you how I ended up becoming the new toy between her and her partner. My name is Brenda, I'm 30 years old, and I live in Ohio. I work as a supervisor at a well-known clothing store in the city, so my life is generally simple and peaceful at work. Takes up the majority of my time, and when I'm not there, I'm usually at home. Unlike most people, I don't go out much and have always been more reserved, which may have contributed to my difficulties meeting new people and forming relationships, because it's difficult to find someone interesting when you hardly leave the house, right? Since I was young, I've never had much luck in love. My only serious relationship was challenging and left scars back then, but I gave it my all and did everything I could to make it work, spending money on pricey imported gifts. I strained to keep the relationship going and stretched my budget to give him what I felt he deserved while he enjoyed himself, and even spent money on others behind my back. I was cheated on so many times that I lost count, but for some reason I stayed, maybe because I was lonely or because I thought that love would change something. In the end, I discovered the hard way that my dedication was a reciprocal relationship. I've been single for a few years now, so long in fact that I've forgotten how much time has gone by, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy myself occasionally. I download a dating app whenever I feel the need to find someone interesting, and it's a simple process that always works for me because I'm an attractive woman and I enjoy my own company. I've also experimented with a variety of toys and accessories in every size and shape over the years because getting to know my body has been a liberating experience. My best friend Louisa suggested something I had never tried before, and to sum it up, I'll tell you how we met because it's a very twisty story. Ironically, Louisa was one of the women my ex-boyfriend cheated on me with, but I must clarify that she had no idea he was in a relationship, much less with me. In fact, she was the one who warned me about the situation. It all happened at a party in a city nightclub where the two shared a quick kiss, one of those party kisses between. 2 weeks later, Louisa was browsing social media when she came across his profile. When she opened it, she saw multiple images of us in obviously romantic settings, which unnerved her. She then looked through the photo tags to find my profile and immediately contacted me. Louisa told me everything about the kiss, his actions that evening, and how he appeared to be totally unattached. I was shocked, but I had already suspected something. I just lacked evidence. The conversation gave me the motivation to look into it more. I began keeping an eye on him, and soon after that episode, I discovered multiple other affairs that confirmed all of my suspicions. Rather than starting a rivalry, something unexpected happened. Louisa and I became friends. She was honest with me right away, which in a way helped me see the type of person I was with. I thanked her for her bravery, and our friendship grew stronger over the years. I'm not just friends with Louisa. We have a wonderful relationship. When Louisa introduced me to Peter, they were still dating. It was at that point that I started to notice something strange about the way he looked at me. At first, I thought it was just in my head, so I decided not to bring it up to my friend, thinking I might be imagining things. Peter and Louisa have what many people dream of: a home of their own, cars, motorcycles, frequent travels, and financial stability. Peter is a charming man who is a little older than us, approaching his 40s, leading a stable life. But eventually it became evident that it wasn't my imagination. Peter continued to look at me in a subtle but consistent manner, and I wasn't sure how to respond. I've always known Louisa well and understood her personality. She's the life of the party, constantly out with friends, and her social media is constantly inundated with messages. Louisa has always been gregarious, vivacious, and impossible to miss in any room she entered, always bringing stories and laughter. She never concealed the fact that she had close relationships. Despite our differences, Louisa never lost her free spirit before Peter. She was always surrounded by people, and I had a smaller, more private circle. We were inseparable. I was her closest friend, even though she had many acquaintances. I was the one who attended all the significant events, such as family barbecues and parties with friends, and I frequently visited their home as if it were my own family. However, I have recently begun to notice that our friendship and Peter's Louisa treated me almost like a sister, but there was something unusual about the way they included me in their plans and private moments. Every time we were together, there was laughter and a relaxed conversation that ranged from silly jokes to more daring remarks. On a few occasions, I overheard Louisa and Peter joking intimately, even in casual settings. One day, while we were in their living room, they slipped off to the bedroom for a short while. I admit that I had had a few drinks that day. What surprised me was how it affected me. I enjoyed hearing everything, and with every whisper and muffled laugh, I felt more and more drawn into the moment. With alcohol coursing through my veins, I found myself moving closer to the bedroom door to listen to the giggles and teasing, which took on a different tone. I soon realized what was happening inside was a brief encounter between them, something they probably did naturally even with guests around. Control seemed far away at that point, and before things could get any more awkward, I hurried back to the living room and pretended nothing had happened. Soon after, they returned as though it had been a typical evening, smiling, and we resumed our conversation. That night, I realized that something was changing inside of me in relation to our friendship, and I wasn't sure how to handle it, but everything became clearer when I went to spend a weekend at their house, which Louisa had invited me to do by sending a message saying, "Hey, come." At first, I wasn't particularly excited because Saturdays are usually my day to relax, but after her insistence, I gave in and made the decision to go. I showered to get rid of the week's laziness, put on some light, comfortable clothes, spritzed on my favorite perfume, and went to the market to buy some meat and beer. When I got to their house, I honked, and the gate automatically opened, and Peter was waiting for me by the garage, standing next to the lit grill as soon as I arrived. He greeted me as I parked with his trademark broad smile, saying, "Let's eat and drink, because we have something to celebrate." I got out of the car and hugged him, asking him what was so special about that night. Peter told me that they had recently purchased a beach house, which had been a lifelong dream of theirs. I was truly happy for their accomplishment and nearly burst into tears of joy as I watched them complete everything they had planned. It was amazing to watch people I love succeed, and I felt special to be a part of the celebration. He gave me a playful smile and said, "You know you didn't have to write," after we had discussed the new house and the specifics. I asked where Louisa was, and Peter replied that she was finishing her shower and would be joining us shortly. I explained that this was just my way of doing things, something he knew very well, and as the meat was grilling, we decided to open the beers and begin celebrating even without Louis. Peter played some music to lighten the mood and the atmosphere. After a while, the atmosphere lightened and relaxed as it always did when we were together. The first pieces of meat were ready, and as usual, they were perfect. Peter had a real talent for barbecuing. I've never tasted anything like it. Just as we finished sampling the first round, Louisa looked full of energy. I stood up and gave her a hug, teasingly saying, "Miss me?" We had seen each other 5 days prior at the store, and when we took a step back, I couldn't help but notice how beautiful she always looks. Was the type of woman who attracted attention everywhere she went. She was stunning and immaculately groomed, giving the impression that she had spent all of her husband's money. However, that wasn't far from the truth. She was glowing and, with her usual excitement, began talking about the new beach house. She mentioned that she was planning a trip to inaugurate it, and she said I had to go along. I looked at Peter, who was laughing and clearly happy, and he confirmed that the three of us would go because he wouldn't accept no. Louisa, full of energy as usual, gave me a big hug and said, "Wow, you smell amazing. What perfume is that?" I barely had time to reply before she turned to Peter and laughed, saying, "Smell her, babe. You've got to smell this." I was a little taken aback by the sudden request, but I didn't mind. Peter left the grill, walked around the table, and leaned in. He smelled my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. Then he stepped. Louisa agreed, laughing, and I was happy with the situation. I told her that it was a body lotion that I loved, and she asked for the name of the product. The atmosphere became even lighter and more playful, and we continued to drink and enjoy the barbecue, laughing and chatting as if the unexpected intimacy had only made things better. We spent hours there, in between conversations and laughter, and of course, plenty of After the meat was gone, we sat down at the table and talked about life. At that point, Peter asked me, in a slightly different tone, how I was still single when I was such a beautiful woman, and he knew everything about my past relationships. I replied that I would find someone nice when the time was right, but until then, I was enjoying my freedom and savoring the moment. Of course, I joked that sometimes the longing does hit, which made everyone laugh. Then Louis, with a mischievous smile and a closer look, asked, "Have you ever been?" If it's already difficult to find one person, imagine a couple curious about where the conversation was going. I asked them casually if they had ever considered exploring something like that. Lou smiled and naturally replied that they had, saying that they had always considered having a third person for such adventures. That made things clearer because, after all, that was exactly their style, laid back, open, and a little too wild to be a conventional couple. I wasn't particularly surprised, but it was still new to me. So I stayed there and took in the idea with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Lou moved her chair closer to me, taking my hand firmly, and without hesitation, she asked, "What do you think of Peter? Does he attract you in any way?" I was surprised by the question and immediately went to him. Peter was calmly observing, which briefly gave me a sense of relief. I wondered if Louis had misunderstood something I had never seen Peter with. Her question caught me off guard because it was so direct. I was a little tipsy from the drinks, so I answered playfully, trying to keep the conversation light. "Yes, he's charming and a good presence, isn't he?" Peter smiled without any ulterior motives to avoid making Louis jealous or giving the wrong impression because it was a difficult question to answer without creating misunderstandings. Louis grinned at me and told me to stop being so modest. She reassured me that I wouldn't be judged, but then she revealed something I hadn't anticipated. Peter and I had already considered who we wanted for this new experience we'd been wanting to try, so I remained silent and just listened until she finally said, "It's you, my friend. We want to be with you." I felt my face flush and was left stunned as Louis started to explain that she wanted the new experience to be with someone they trusted, someone close to them, and that person was me. I was still in disbelief, so I asked why, and she said that something like this could end seriously endangering our friendship, but Louis, who always remained composed, assured me that it wouldn't happen. She said that we were too close for that, and that if anything, it would only make us closer. "It's something personal, nothing too serious," she said. "If you don't want to, that's okay. We'll just act like this conversation never happened." I was unsure of how to react to the unexpected proposal, and after a long silence in which I tried to process what I had just heard, I said, "Okay, I'll try it with you." My voice faltered a little as I tried to understand what was happening, but I added, "If it doesn't work, we'll stop and pretend it never happened just like you said." Louis smiled, satisfied with my response, and gave me a warm hug. Peter, who had been quietly watching until then, gave me a knowing, relaxed look as if fully aligned with the care Louis had promised. I knew I was entering uncharted territory, but there was a sense of trust in the air because we had been friends for so long. She leaned in and kissed me bolder than I had expected, and I responded surprisingly spontaneously. It caught me completely off guard, but there was also something fascinating about the moment we stayed there kissing, while Peter watched with intense gaze. Then I heard Peter get up and approach Louis, paused for a moment, and then Peter kissed me. At that moment, I felt totally engrossed in the moment, and as I kissed Peter, I felt Lou as soft. Until Lou suggested that we go inside to be more comfortable, we embraced that moment of pure connection by sharing kisses and caresses along my neck. As I watched, completely engrossed in the atmosphere, I felt a growing desire to be there with them, as if everything made perfect sense at that moment. Then Louis called me with a smile. "Come here, friend. Now it's your turn." I joined them, and we embraced the experience without haste and without limits. We all slept together until dawn, when exhaustion finally overtook us. The following morning, I woke up next to Louis Peter, who was in the kitchen, seemingly preparing something. Lou hugged me and asked if I had enjoyed the night, and if I had felt uncomfortable at any point. I smiled and told her that it had been an incredible experience that I never would have imagined having, and that I loved every second of it. I thanked her with a quick kiss, and we stayed there cuddling and laughing like old times. Soon after, friends Peter excitedly entered the room with a tray full of a delectable breakfast that included cake, bread, ham, mozzarella, and fruit. He had prepared everything for us, and we thanked him with a kiss before starting to enjoy the moment. After eating, we took a shower and spent the afternoon lounging and chatting about life. When it came time to say goodbye, everything went smoothly, as if it had been just another day spent with friends. I returned home feeling that the experience had been special, but without any discomfort aside, all I need to do now is wait for Peter and Louis to deliver the new beach house's keys so we can open it and have a nice weekend together.